In today's class, we will be learning about how the internal aspects of the business environment can be scanned or analyzed. And as we learned in the introductory lecture, the business environment is composed of two main parts, including the internal and external environment. So our prime focus today will be on the internal environment of business. By the end of this lecture, this is the outline that we envisage to exhaust. And as I indicated, this lecture is supposed to help us conduct, first of all, appreciate the functional areas that fall within the purview of an internal organization's environment. And we will also try to understand how the internal environment can be scanned, the various techniques that are available, and the purpose of conducting these scans, that is the utility that we can get from the information which will be obtained when we finish conducting an internal environment assessment. Generally speaking, all organizations demonstrate varying degrees of strengths and weaknesses across different functional areas of their business. So if you pick two or more organizations, whether they are in the same line of business or their core business is different, you will realize that even two similar banks or two similar universities may not have commonalities as far as their strengths and weaknesses are concerned. And this is usually due to the way they have structured their functional areas of business. And because the strengths and weaknesses of the functional areas of organizations are not the same, it is always important for every organization to recognize their peculiar strengths and weaknesses and utilize them in formulating part and parcel of their strategic planning and operational efficiencies. So to be able to discern the respective strengths and weaknesses of an organization, it becomes necessary for them to conduct what we call internal assessment or internal audit or an internal scan. In fact, the internal assessment is a tool that is construed to be a critical component of the strategic management process, because in the end, it stands to provide an organization with a comprehensive information of all the nitty-gritties of the organization's internal environment by elucidating its strengths and weaknesses, and also projecting how some of these weaknesses may be converted into strengths in order for the organization not only to enjoy competitive advantage, but to also sustain the level of superiority they are having over their rivals. So it can never be overlooked when one strives to formulate, implement, and evaluate strategies for an organization. In other words, it is a prerequisite, since it will furnish the strategies with wealth of information that can be utilized in formulating formidable strategies and go ahead to implement it, and thereafter evaluate the strategy to verify whether the organization is on the right path or there is the need for some remedies to be introduced. What then is the purpose of conducting an internal audit or internal assessment? So the acronym for it is AII. AIII. The first one borders on assessing the performance of the organization, particularly its internal happiness. Then the second I borders on identifying the strengths of the organization. The third one also denotes the tendency to identify the weaknesses of the organization, and finally, to inform strategy formulation and implementation. So when we say the purpose of an internal assessment is to assess performance, what does that mean? It indicates that there is the need to evaluate the current performance of the different functional areas within the organization. And these functional areas may fall within the continuum of management, marketing department, HR department, accounting and finance, production or product development, research and development, and what have you. So once we are able to appraise the contribution of each of these units towards organizational success, then we will be able to derive pointers as to which department is struggling, whilst I also noting the departments that are excelling in their pursuits. And thereafter, we will be in a position to know the remedies to introduce. So that is all that has to do when we say we are assessing the performance through internal assessment. Again, the purpose of internal assessment is to identify the strengths of the organization. And this is done to determine areas in the organization that are excelling, particularly the functional areas, which can then be leveraged for competitive advantage. So if you juxtapose the contribution of the various departments and units to the attainment of the organizational success, and realize certain key units are spearheading and championing the success, then they can be targeted for resources to be prioritized to them so that it can sustain their contribution to organizational success. Wherein the weaknesses will also earmark the functional areas in the organization that can also be turned around in order to change the misfortunes of the organization. Typically, some of the strengths that can be identified internally through these internal assessments may crop up to be a strong brand reputation that the firm is having as a result of the way the firm is treating or serving customers. That could actually crop up to be an internal strength one can identify. Another could also be an assessment of the firm's product development. And when it turns out to be that the firm is churning out innovative products, that alone can also be construed as an internal strength, in the sense that it will always help them to have an edge over their production, as well as the goods and services that they are churning into the market, which their rivals will struggle to catch up with. Now, the identification of weaknesses, as far as this internal assessment is concerned, also highlights areas that are needed, that require improvement, as I indicated earlier on. And this is also important because instead of focusing only on your strengths and leveraging on it to propel you to the desirable end, it is also important for you to turn around your weaknesses by going at great lengths to perhaps convert them to your strengths. So To do this, it is important for you to, first of all, identify them before you can address them. And attending to your weaknesses in this regard will help you to mitigate possible risk whilst enhancing the efficiency of the organization. Typically, some of the identifiable weaknesses that may be markedly present in an organization could include poor customer services, which are usually derived from complaints, or an internal audit can be conducted to receive some of these feedback from customers. So when an organization is characterized to be filled with huge number of complaints from the customers, then it is an avenue or a weakness that they need to work on. And in order to convert this weakness to a strength, it will mean that whatever complaints that are coming from your customers, you don't have to take them for granted, but you have to work as seriously towards correcting them, which may be tackled through organizing some form of training and development interventions for the workforce that deals directly with the customers. It could also be as a result of the customer complaints may not be partly the fault of the workforce, but it could also be due to the fact that the required logistics that they may need to succeed in carrying out their duties and responsibilities are not forthcoming. So if that is also the reason, then you have to, as an organization, remedy the situation in that regard. And once you pursue or you tackle internal weaknesses from this perspective, then you are on the path of converting these weaknesses into your strengths. And that may, in the long run, help you to change the negative brand perception you may have in the business environment. And it can also go a long way for you to retain your customers. Then, another identifiable weakness we can pick from conducting internal assessment could be the use of an outdated technology. So an internal audit may reveal that a plausible weakness, which may be leading to poor customer service, is as a result of the technology that is in place being outdated. So if that is the reason, then it is important for management to address it. So another identifiable weakness in an organization could be an outdated technology. Another can also be said about when the company has higher level of employee turnover, which means that they are either doing something that the employees are not happy with, or they are not doing something employees implicitly or explicitly expect them to do, particularly when it comes to the contractual relationship between employers and employees. So when some of these indicators are prevailing, then it connotes an internal weakness, which must be addressed squarely. Then the last purpose of conducting internal assessment of an organization is to inform strategy. As we've learned so far, it will be important for strategy formulation to be contingent on relevant information that address the realities in the business environment. So if we are doing an internal scan, that's supposed that whatever information we will be deriving is going to be fed into the strategy formulation activity so that it does address the needs and pursuits of the organization, as well as the targeted audience that the organization stands to serve. So these are essentially the purpose of conducting an internal assessment. What benefits can be derived when internal assessment is conducted? This one too, you may decide to create an acronym for it using the first initials or whatever you want. So there are essentially 5, including the degree to enhance strategic alignment. So when we conduct an internal assessment of an organization, the outcome of the assessment will ensure that the internal capabilities and resources that will be identified is thus aligned with the strategic objectives which the organization in question aspires to achieve. So the audit is going to inform you about your strengths and your weaknesses, the competencies you have in your organization, the human and non-human resources that are available. So when you are making any projections as far as your objectives is concerned, you will be in position to set objectives which you have the means to realize. In the same vein, you will also be in a position to earmark how such formulated objectives can be assessed. The second one is also to improve decision-making process in the organization. So how do you improve decision-making process? The outcome of the internal assessment will furnish management and decision makers in the organization with hardcore information or factual basis on which informed strategic decisions will be contingent upon. So if the scanning suggests that the technology that the organization currently have is outdated, then it will dawn upon the organization to procure a new technology that will put them in the right frame of operation to successfully accomplish their long-term aspirations. In the same vein, if the internal scan suggests that the human resources that are currently available is inadequate compared to the targets that has been earmarked to accomplish, then it will be the basis for perhaps embarking on recruitment and selection. You can't go ahead with recruitment and selection when you haven't conducted any thorough internal scan or audits. It is this scan that will inform you whether you have fewer hands chasing so many jobs or so many jobs but fewer hands to accomplish it. And it is almost always important to have the right fit between the quantum and quality of human resources as well as the tasks that are available to be done. So anytime some of these strategic decisions are required to be taken, the information derived from internal assessment will inform it. The third one also borders on the degree to which risk can be mitigated. So the internal audit will ordinarily identify potential risk that could derail the attainment, in fact, the rollout of a strategic plan towards the attainment of the strategic objectives. And by identifying these potential risks or pitfalls, it may also project alternatives that can be rolled out to mitigate the situation. So as much as possible, the information that is derived from internal assessments will be relevant in this direction. The fourth one also borders on the degree to which resources can be optimized. So what does resource optimization mean? The internal assessment, having identified the strengths, weaknesses, and also identified areas where the organization have to prioritize on, when it gets to the allocation of resources to the prioritized areas of the organization, they will be in a position to do it appropriately. So in essence, the internal assessment provides information that informs how resources can be efficiently allocated to areas within the organization that have the highest strategic impacts. And the designation of areas with strategic impact will be contingent on the units or departments that contribute significantly towards organizational success. So when it comes to resource allocation, these units and departments may also have to be prioritized. Then the last one borders on continuous improvement. So when we say continuous improvement simply means that the information that will be obtained will identify aspects or functional areas that needs to be encouraged or incentivized in order to sustain their significant contribution to organizational success, whilst it will also point out functional areas in the organization that require some level of improvements. And these pointers will indicate that the organization will have to be a continuous learning entity wherein they are constantly attempting to convert their weaknesses to their strength through some form of intervention, such as training, such as offering incentives to sustain performance, or such as transferring from certain units to other departments in order to balance the pressures that are found at such departments. So these are some of the benefits that we can derive when we conduct internal assessment of an organization. The key internal forces. Essentially, key internal forces of an organization denotes the critical factors within the organization that influences its performance. And usually the ultimate outcome that the organization aspires to attain. And these key internal forces or factors range from the management units through the HR units to the department that will be responsible for manning and operating the management information system. And this is also contingent on the sort of structure that is being run. Because every structure tries to attain a particular objective. So that if a particular structure will help a university to flourish, that same structure may not help a telecommunication company to succeed. So the creation of these functional areas or the internal forces which can be harnessed for an organization to achieve its overall success is not cast in stones, but rather depend on the ultimate objectives that it strives to achieve. So that is why we are saying that these key internal forces usually are designed in part to improve a firm's weakness and turn them into their strength. And that is why the structure that may work for firm A may not yield similar results for a different firm. So for different type of organizations, such as hospitals, universities, NGOs, government agencies, banks, and what have you, their business area may differ, but regardless of the type of organization that is being perused, their size, as well as their location, it is incumbent upon them to have strategic planning being hinged on the ability to prioritize on information that will be derived from internal scan of their functional areas. Now, it is important for the outcome of the internal scan of these internal forces to identify the functional units that connote their strengths or that are projecting the strengths of the organization, which may have to be leveraged upon for them to achieve their fortunes. And at the same time, identify their weaknesses that needs to be mitigated. Now, it is important for strategies to be concerned about the weaknesses just as they are equally interested in harnessing their strength. And the reason is that if they are able to convert the weaknesses of a given organization to its strengths, then perhaps it can eventually be construed as not just any competency, but a distinctive competency, which can result in their attainment of competitive advantage. And as we learned 2 weeks ago, firms must always strive to outcompete their rivals, and they can do so by working on their weaknesses. So whereas the strength will help them to compete very well in the business environment, the conversion of their weaknesses to competencies that can also set them apart from their rivals is also an avenue that can be applied. The process of performing an internal audit. Generically speaking, the process involves gathering information from within the business organization, assimilating this information, and prioritizing information about the firm's functional areas, including management, marketing, finance and accounting, production and operations, research and development, HR, MIS, and what have you. Now, by prioritizing information about these functional areas, it is able to provide more opportunity for participants to understand how their jobs, their departments, or their division or unit fits into the whole firm's pursuits, so that each of these functional areas will be able to design their respective strategies that will subserve the attainment of the ultimate strategy of the organization. So management will have their own strategy, marketing will have its strategy, HR will have its strategy, accounting and finance will have its own strategy. And together, these respective strategies must direct their efforts to champion the attainment of the organizational strategy, which will be occupying the apex of their pursuits. So whenever there is an alignment between the respective functional areas, strategic pursuits, and the attainment of organizational strategies, then we say there is vertical alignment. Alternatively, when these respective functional areas, ranging from management, marketing, finance, accounting, pursue their strategy such that it mutually supports each other, then we call it horizontal integration. Later on, when we finish discussing both internal and external audits, I will escalate the discourse of these integrations outside the organization. But in the interim, when we talk about internal vertical integration, we are referring to the degree to which these functional areas will pursue their strategy to subserve the ultimate strategy of an organization. And when we talk about horizontal integration, it refers to the degree to which these functional areas will pursue their strategy to mutually support each other. So, for instance, the HR will not conduct recruitment and selection when they do not have the backing of the finance and accounting department, because there must be budget and money made available to champion the recruitment exercise and also reward the new hirees. The same can be said about any marketing drive that will be pursued by the marketing department. If the budget that they've submitted to the finance department has not been approved, then they will also be truncated in their pursuit of embarking on any marketing drive. So when we say the activities of these functional areas must mutually support each other, then we're essentially talking about horizontal integration. Now, we are going to consider the theory which backs the conduct of internal assessment of an organization. In other words, what is the theoretical underpinning of the conduct of any form of internal scan or internal assessment of an organization? The theoretical backbone of internal assessment can be traced to the resource-based view. The resource-based view. And the resource-based view contends that so usually there are two main avenues or resources that can be harnessed by an organization in order for them to successfully achieve their objectives. And these objectives include, these resources include the ones that are found inside the organization and the ones that are found outside the organization. In doing so, the resource-based view contends that of these two key resources, that is the external and the internal, it is the internal resources that are more important for a firm than the external ones. And they allude a number of reasons why they contend that it is the internal ones. And the key reason they submit for prioritizing internal resources over the external one is that the internal ones are within the control of the organization, unlike the external ones that may be orchestrated by circumstances beyond the control of an organization. So they also continue that organizational performance will primarily be determined by these internal resources that can be grouped into three categories, ranging from physical resources, human resources, and organizational resources. Now, the physical resources, according to the resource-based view, include factors or forces such as the plants or equipment that are used to produce goods and services, the location of the organization, and if they have multiple locations, then it becomes their loci, the technology that they may have in place to turn around their business, the raw materials that may be available for them, and the machinery that may also be utilized in converting the raw materials into semi-finished or finished products. So these are the physical resources according to the resource-based view. Then when they talk about the human resources, it's includes all employees or workforce that will be working assiduously within the organization in order to realize its fortunes. Beyond the human resources, it also includes any other initiative or action that can add value to these human resources. So this includes training and development opportunities, offering opportunities for employees to have further experiences, the intelligence that may be available to the organization, particularly about what the rivals are doing and what maintains in the business environment. The KSAs that may be the knowledge, skills, and abilities that embody these human resources, they all border on the human resource component or category. Then the organizational resources, which is the third component, as per the resource-based view, also includes the firm structure. So the organogram that is utilized to form the basis of interaction and intercommunication, reporting line, hierarchy of command, and what have you. The planning processes that are also embedded in the organizational business activities. The information system that may be available for effective decision to be contingent upon. There could also be patents or trademarks, or if you like, copyrights, which are all available for the exclusive use of the organization. And they all constitute the organizational resources. A firm resource can also be characterized to be either tangible or intangible. So when we characterize a firm's resource to be tangible, then we are talking about the land, labor, machinery, equipment, plants, or any other resources that can be easily touched or perceived. Then the intangible ones also construe the organizational culture, which may not be directly discerned, particularly if you are not an insider. So the culture, the knowledge, the brand, or the reputation that an organization have. Then you could also discern their intellectual properties also to be an intangible component of organizational resources. Now, the resource-based view suggests that since tangible resources such as land, labor, and equipment can be easily bought and sold, it is the intangible resources that needs to be prioritized in order to gain and sustain competitive advantage. So what they are trying to say over here is that of the two typologies of resources, including the tangible and the intangible ones, the tangible ones can be easily bought or imitated by your rivals. So if you want to enjoy sustained competitive advantage, as far as your competition with your rivals is concerned, then your focus should target the intangible ones, such as creating a culture that may be unique for your operations alone, or procuring intellectual properties of which you as an organization may have the proprietary rights to operate, working to achieve a reputation which may be quite difficult for your rivals to also emulate, and what have you. So that is the suggestion which has been put forth by the resource-based view. So the basic premise or the core argument of the resource-based view is that the mix, the type and the amount of firms' internal resources should be considered first. In fact, first and foremost, whenever they are designing strategies that can lead to sustained competitive advantage. So the main thing they are trying to tell us is that when we strive to help an organization achieve sustained competitive advantage, our focus should be on mixing the internal resources that will help us have an edge over our rivals. And in doing so, we should prioritize on the intangible ones. Now, for a resource to be construed as valuable as per the resource-based view, such resources must have three main characteristics, including the degree to which it is rare, it is hard to imitate, and it is supposed to be difficult for the rivals to substitute it. So the more a firm's resources are rare, that is, if it is not held by any other firm in that community of practice. And it is also hard for rivals to imitate or to copy. And lastly, when it is not easy for rivals to have a substitution for a particular resource, then we can construe it as a valuable resource. And it is these characterizations or valuations of resources that can result in the firm's ability to achieve sustained competitive advantage. Now, these three characterizations of resources can equally be labeled as the empirical indicators of valuable resources, because they are the qualities of resources that is able to set apart a flourishing enterprise from a struggling enterprise. And they also go a long way to help a firm to implement strategies that can help improve its efficiency and effectiveness, thereby guaranteeing their attainment of sustained competitive advantage. The integration of strategy with culture. So why is it important for the culture of an organization to be aligned with the strategy that the firm strives to pursue? As we are all aware, every business entity has a unique organizational culture that impacts their strategic planning activities. So the organizational culture of two universities, even though they may have similar objectives, may differ because the environment that they find themselves and their specific objectives may differ. So it is almost always for organizations to have their culture calibrated to follow the unique strategy they are pursuing. Organizational culture can also be explained as the shared values, if you like, belief system and norms in the organization, which influence how employees interact and intercommunicate and also help them to work very well in the organization. So anytime we talk about belief system, values, philosophies, ideals, that is able to help employees interact and work within an organization effectively, then we are talking about the organizational culture. Now, it is important to integrate the strategy that is being pursued by an organization with the culture for a number of reasons. One of which includes the degree to which such a pursuit will align the goals and behaviors of the organization with the strategy that is being pursued. So by integrating strategy with the culture of an organization, we are able to ensure that the behavior and attitude of employees are in sync with the strategic goals that is being pursued by the organization. This will also go at great lengths to facilitate the achievements of the strategic objectives through a supportive and cohesive work environment. And don't forget, the working environment is the atmosphere or work environment in an organization is created by the culture that has been erected. Another reason why it is important for us to integrate strategy with culture of an organization is that it stands a great chance to enhance performance. It stands a great chance to enhance the performance of not only employees, but the organization in totality. So whenever we are able to align the strategy being pursued by an organization with the culture that has been erected, such a pursuit can lead to higher levels of employee engagement. So the focus and the priorities of employees will be on pursuing the strategy, and the culture will also be available for them to flourish. And this level of engagement can sustain their contribution to organizational success, which amounts to productivity. And it may also create the environment for them to innovate in order to attain their performance standards. We can also construe that by integrating strategy with culture, performance can be enhanced in the sense that such a pursuit creates a unified direction that ends up reducing conflicts. It ends up reducing conflicting roles and foster collaboration. It foster collaborative atmosphere. So in the absence of a culture that fosters the attainment of a strategy, you are likely to have an environment where individuals may be pursuing duplicity in their role performance. But a culture that is in sync with strategy will prune out all duplicated roles and make sure that every individual's contribution to organizational success is clarified. Another reason why it is important to integrate strategy and culture is that it can contribute to change management. So whenever management anticipates the need to introduce some changes or innovations, there should be a culture that is in place which will embrace some of these changes. And for this change to be successful, the embracement of the culture, as far as the new changes that have been introduced is concerned, is necessary but not sufficient. There must be accompanying interventions that will ensure that all key stakeholders that are going to be affected by the change are actually updated. And this update may take the form of upgrading them through training, or at least informing them to prepare their mind and their conscience towards it. So integrating culture and strategy is essential during times of change to ensure smooth and seamless transitioning, whilst minimizing any form of potential resistance from employees. Now, so far we have learned that as far as the key internal forces are concerned, the key functional areas need to be the key functional areas that take a center stage in the operations of an organization need to be assessed or scanned in order to discern their strengths and weaknesses, and also derive how some of these weaknesses can be converted into their strengths, with the view of helping the firm have a formidable strategy that can outcompete the rivals. And some of these key functional areas that fall within the purview of internal forces include management. The essence of this class is not to be solely concerned about the functions of management, but we must pay keen attention to the reason why a managerial function such as planning has strategic importance. So organizing, what is the strategic importance of organizing? So as we discussed, please pay keen attention about it. And the materials I'll be giving you may not be enough, so you are at liberty to upgrade your knowledge. So as we all learned in our introductory classes, so I think all of you did introduction to business administration. We learned that management is the art and science of planning, organizing, motivating, staffing, and controlling organizational resources in an effective and efficient manner towards the attainment of the organization's long-term objectives. Now, these activities, ranging from the planning to controlling, are said to be important to assess in the strategic planning process because they form the foundation for effective management and organizational success. If you take planning, for instance, why do we say it is important to strategic planning? Planning typically involves setting goals and defining strategies or outlining tasks that can be utilized to the attainment of these goals. So when we say planning in managerial terms, it simply means you are setting goals or ends and identifying means that can be utilized to attain these goals. In the field of strategic management, this activity is said to be essential because it sets the direction for the organization. It sets the direction where the organization is aspiring to reach. And it also helps in the allocation of resources in an efficient and effective manner. So that is the aspect of planning that we are interested in. When you take the organizing function of management, it's simply revolves around the arrangement of resources or tasks in a reasonable manner to achieve organizations' activities. So in strategic management, what is the importance of arranging resources and tasks to achieve objectives? Organizing ensures that the right resources are at the right place at the right time, and they are utilized in an effective and efficient manner. So the planning will itemize the areas of the organization that needs to be prioritized, and the resources in terms of their quality and quantity, in terms of their human and non-human, will then be rolled out to help in the attainment of these long-term objectives. Motivation or motivating is also important. So generally, when we say motivation, it simply means you are the tendency for someone, usually in a leadership position, to inspire or encourage the followers, which are usually the employees, to achieve organizational goals. And in strategic management, understanding motivation is important because it will ensure that employees are always aligned with strategic objectives, and they are also willing to work towards them. So which means that the crop of leaders we have in place must deliberately lead by example to inspire others towards the achievement of greater heights. In staffing, what happens is that we conduct recruitment, select the most talented workforce out of the pool. We train and develop them to a pedestal that the organization sees fit, and also place them in positions which is at par with their competencies and capabilities. So it's essentially ensures that we have right pegs in right holes and not square pegs in round holes. In strategic planning or management, staffing is important because it will be suicidal for an organization not to have the right mix of people in the helm of affairs. So what I mean by this is that if you do not have the right quality of people of the right quantity at the right time and at the right place, then all the effort of the organization will be in futility. So anytime we strive to pursue or execute a strategic plan successfully, it is incumbent upon us to utilize the staffing approach to ensure that at all time we have the right quality and quantity of human resources at the right place and at the right time in a cost-effective manner. Now, the controlling function of management also borders on the degree to which the performance of individuals as well as that of the organization can be continually monitored, such that when the performance is deviating from the standard that has been set from the beginning of the calendar year, then the necessary remedies can be put in place to address the situation. And in strategic management, controlling helps to ensure that an organization is always on track towards the attainment of its set objectives. So the controlling function will create some level of flexibility for the necessary adjustment to be made as and when it is required in order to keep the organization on track. So that is what the functional area of management. That is how it can contribute to organizational success. And that is what we should be concerned about whenever we are scanning the role or the function of management in an organization. Another functional area in an organization which also play a cardinal role in its success or failure is the marketing unit or department. And as we have all learned in our introductory to business administration class, marketing borders on the process of defining, anticipating, creating, and fulfilling customers' needs and wants for products and services of an organization. So anytime an attempt is made to satisfy the needs of customers by churning out goods and services that address their wants and needs, then we are talking about marketing. Now, marketing so the department of marketing can also have its own strategy, which is designed to subserve the attainment of the ultimate strategy of an organization. And marketing strategy is essentially going to direct the affairs of the marketing departments. It usually involves the development of a plan to achieve the marketing department's objectives. And this may include, but not limited to, the selection of a target market for the organization, the positioning of the given organization in the said markets, the allocation of resources to the pursuit of marketing activities such as advertisements and what have you. So how does this concern us when it comes to strategic management? The development of marketing strategy is said to be essential because it needs to be aligned. In fact, all marketing activities must be aligned with the overall organizational goals that is being pursued, so that the marketing department must not be pursuing a strategy that will counter the ultimate goal of an organization. So if, for instance, the organization is pursuing an innovation strategy wherein the marketing drive is expected to be done using some form of innovation or through the adoption of technology, then the pursuit of marketing activities, particularly using manual or physical presence, must also be redirected. Now, beyond marketing analytics, beyond marketing strategy that is developed by the marketing unit to support the marketing activities of the department, the marketing unit can also utilize marketing analytics to inform effective marketing decision makings. In fact, not only marketing decision making, but any decision making that will be concerned about getting the best out of any market that an organization ventures into. So marketing analytics simply borders on the degree to which the marketing department can utilize some form of tools or technology to measure and analyze how the marketing department is performing. And the outcome of this measurement and analysis will inform the future activities and effectiveness of the marketing department. So in strategic management, the conduct of marketing analytics, for instance, for the marketing department is construed to be important because it will help identify the marketing activities of the organization that are succeeding and the ones that are struggling in order for adjustments to be made. So if, for instance, the company is getting a lot of attention and traction through their Facebook presence as compared to the marketing drive that is being made through delivery vans and other forms of media that are churned through vehicles, then it does seem right that they must pump more money into online advertisements. The marketing department or unit in an organization can also contribute to the strategic fortunes or the attainment of the long-term goals of an organization through their periodic conduct of what we call marketing research. And this marketing research involves the degree to which the marketing department will gather and analyze information about their market, including the preferences of customers, the strategies that are being used by their competitors, and trending issues in their business markets. And the outcome of this marketing research can be utilized to inform, can be used to understand the market environment where the business is playing, and also identify plausible opportunities or threats that are available so that strategies can be matched out to counter it. In the development of products, the outcome of marketing activities such as marketing research and marketing analysis can also inform the development of new products or the enhancement of available products and services that meets customer needs. So in strategic management, product development is not the sole responsibility of the product development department or unit, but rather they will also have to rely on the marketing department's information supply, since the marketers are usually the ones that deal directly with the customers, and they are also constantly present at the market where the goods and services are being introduced. They can even inform the pricing of the products and services of an organization based on the outcome of the marketing research or the analytics. They can indicate that strategically they may decide to lower the prices of their goods and services in order to bring more patronage to the organization. In the same vein, they may decide to they may decide to create new products which quality may command individuals that have deeper pockets and patronage. So these are how the marketing department can contribute to strategic planning. When it comes to promotion and even distribution channels of the organization, the marketing department becomes very much instrumental. Now, the finance and accounting. So generally speaking, when it comes to the functions that fall within the purview of finance or accounting units in an organization, it borders on three main decisions, which include the investment decision, the financing decision, and the dividend decision. So when we talk about the investment decision, the accounting and finance department is responsible for advising the organization to determine how the company will invest its funds in different assets or projects in order to generate some level of returns for the firm. And the pursuit of investment decision may include activities such as evaluating their existing investment opportunities, the risk that are available when the firm decides to embark on a particular project or invest their funds in a particular asset. Then the possible returns that the firm stands to also yield when they decide to invest in a particular project or asset. In fact, they should be able to break down varied or alternative investment portfolios and advise the organization in selecting the ones that actually aligns with the strategic objectives or the strategic direction of the firm. So when it comes to investment decisions, those are the issues that become imperative. Now, when we talk about financing decision of the accounting or finance department, it borders on the degree to which the finance department is able to guide the company in to invest in certain operations or other alternative investments. So to what degree can the financial decisions of an organization be determined? Which ones will it be more beneficial to go into, and which ones will it be more detrimental or less rewarding to venture into? When this cost-benefit analysis is done and submitted for an organization to take a decision on, then we are talking about the financing decision of the organization. And the outcome of this financing decision will help a firm to realize the assets or projects that it will be more rewarding to venture into, and the ones that it will be less rewarding to venture into. Then dividends decision as provided by the accounting and finance units also borders on the extent to which companies that usually have shareholders are able to determine the profits of the organization and how such profits will also be distributed to the shareholders as dividends. And it also borders on the extent to which some of these profits will be retained for future reinvestment. So all the considerations that borders on how shareholders will be compensated for their the money that they have contributed to the organization in terms of shares and the dividend that they are going to yield borders on dividend decisions. And it is the accounting and finance department that stands at a better position to advise an organization on some of these decisions. So these functions usually have significant implications for the amount of profit that will be made in a given year, the profit that will be retained, the growth of the organization, and essentially the financial health of the organization. Because decision on how much to retain and reinvest and the decision on how much will be paid back to shareholders as dividends all resides on the directives that will be received from the accounting and finance department. So those of you that are doing accounting, you have a number of financial ratios that are usually considered when you are deliberating on how much earnings will be distributed. Some of which include earning per share ratio, is it dividend per share ratio, and a number of them. Yeah. So another functional area in an organization which also plays a critical role when it comes to the assessment of internal forces of an organization include the production or the operation units. And when we talk about the production and operation activities, they usually represent the largest facets of an organization's human and capital assets. And they consist of all the activities that transform the inputs of the organization into semi-finished goods or finished goods and services. Now, the activities of the productions or the operations units, as per Roger Schroeder, include 5 main functions. So the activities of the operations and productions departments encompass 5 key functions, which include the processing function, the capacity function, the inventory function, workforce, and finally, the quality assurance function. So I'm taking it again. The productions and operations functions, in order for us to assess their contribution to organizational success, as far as these internal forces are concerned, include our interrogation of 5 key functions. This include their processing activities, their capacity to process goods and services, the inventory that's at their disposal, the workforce that are also converting this inventory into semi-finished or finished goods and services, and finally, the quality of goods and services that they are churning out. So when we say the process function of the production and operation department, it involves the degree to which the production activities can be designed, managed, and pursued in order to produce goods and services that are relevant to the targeted customers. And this usually includes determining the most efficient methods and technologies to use. And it may also require the extent to which the production flow can be optimized in order to reduce wastages and breakages. So the process essentially borders on the degree to which goods and services can be produced using some form of technology or innovation that will reduce wastages and breakages and make effective use of resources. The second function, which borders on capacity, also requires capacity management, wherein an attempt is made to determine the production capacity needs that are required to meet customer demands. And this may require the organization to do some forecasting, which will determine the demand from targeted customers, the human resources that will be required to carry out or meet these demands, the non-human resources that must also be made available. So when I say non-human resources, I'm referring to the logistics or technology. All these border on capacity management, which is the second function that falls within the purview of production and operations and must, for that matter, be considered when we are doing an assessment of these units. The third function of this production and operation units borders on inventory management, which involves managing the level of raw materials that are received from various sources and all the work-in processes that tend to add value to these raw materials into finished goods to meet the desired satisfaction and target of customers. Now, the workforce, which is the fourth component of the productions or operations, also requires some level of management. So when we say workforce management, we are essentially talking about the extent to which the individuals that are going to turn the raw materials into finished or semi-finished goods can be properly assembled. This may require recruitment, training, and some form of work scheduling to ensure continuity in production. During the recruitment and selection, the interest is on whether the individuals that are being given the assignment have the right qualities to deliver. And we are also concerned about the right quantities. So the workforce management borders on all the activities that ensure that we have the right human resources of the right quality and quantity in place to be able to perform their jobs effectively. And the fifth function that falls within the purview of the production units, which must also be assessed as far as internal assessment is concerned for that unit, is about quality management. So the goods and services that are going to be churned out to the market should not be of poor standard or quality. This means that quality management or quality assurance should become a focal point of the activities of the production unit. So to what extent has the production activities put in place checks and measures that can ensure that at all times, customers' expectations in terms of the standards of quality can never be compromised? And this will involve the implementation of quality control processes, continuous monitoring of the quality of the product or services, and an attempt being made to continually improve the quality of the goods and services, which are usually adjusted through the feedback that is obtained from the customers. Another functional area that needs to be assessed when we are conducting internal scan is the research and development unit. So research and development, and once again, depending on the organogram of the organization, they may not have a specialized unit dedicated solely for research and development. So research and development may be a sub-dimension of, for instance, an HR department, or it could also be an appendage of the management department. which will be concerned about conducting continuous research and utilizing the outcome of this research to inform not only decisions, but bring about innovation that can help the company attain competitive advantage. Essentially, research and development is all about the process that is utilized by the units to investigate and bring about information that can be used to create new products or services that can meet the needs of customers. It could also be the introduction of new processes or improvements that will advance existing ones. So whatever way you look at it, the essence of the research, having this research and development units, will be to gather information that will bring value to internal processes and also enhance higher level of customer satisfaction. Now, when research and development activities are being assessed as part of the internal audit pursuits, it should be able to demarcate the level of innovation it is bringing into the organizational dealings. So to what extent is the research and development departments in a position to drive the development of new products and services that can help the company differentiate its services from rivals. It can also border on the extent to which it is driving competitive advantage or helping to drive a sustainable competitive advantage by helping the firm to develop processes that the firm alone will have proprietary rights to, or if you like, patents to utilize, so that the competitors or rivals will not be in place to replicate such processes. The research and development may also facilitate in gathering marketing intelligence. And this marketing intelligence can help the marketing department to identify customer preferences, trending marketing issues, and strategies that are being ironed out by competitors in order for the organization in question to also formulate strategies that will be able to counter these ones, thereby providing avenue for competitive advantage. Then the management information system that may also be championed by the MIS department or the systems department can be an avenue that will be scanned whenever we are doing internal analysis, because the outcome of the performance of this department affects a lot of stakeholders. It affects the decision-making outcome of a lot of stakeholders in the organization. So it becomes necessary to also verify whether their activities are on the right path or otherwise. Typically speaking, when we say market management information system, it refers to any type of system that is designed to provide managers and other end users with the information they will need to make decisions. So the marketing information system as a system thrives on garbage in, garbage out information processing pursuit, wherein information will have to be received in their raw form, inputted into the system, then it is processed or stored in certain categories or codes, and such information may also be distributed to various facets of the organization that may require it. And when those key stakeholders are at a point or at the verge of making some decisions, then they rely on the information that has been inputted into it in order to make quality decisions. So all the functional areas in an organization, in one way or the other, flourish in their decision-making by relying on the information that has been garbaged in the management information system. So that is what we mean when we say they use the various functional areas, ranging from HR departments to marketing department, rely on the management information supplied, the information supplied by the management information system in order to support their planning activities. In fact, it also informs their controlling activities and other decision-making processes. That is expected to be, as much as possible, realistic. Now, so far we have considered what internal scanning or internal assessment entails. And we have also analyzed the key functional areas that fall within the purview of internal organization, ranging from the management department to the management information system department. We are now going to consider the specific tools or techniques that can be used to scan or assess these functional areas to realize whether they are excelling or they are struggling in their pursuit of their strategy. So the first tool we are going to consider is what we call value chain analysis. Value chain analysis. And as the name suggests, value chain analysis is a tool that can be used to analyze all the internal activities that fall within the functional areas of a given company and understand how these functional activities create value for customers and also contribute toward the attainment of the organization's objectives, particularly the extent to which they contribute to the company's competitive advantage. So anytime an attempt is made to discern the cost that is associated with organizational activities, right from the time where raw materials are purchased from the designated vendors to the time where the final goods and services are marketed to our targeted customers. Anytime we try to assign costs and benefits indices to these activities, then we are conducting value chain. In other words, the business of every organization, or the main purpose for which any organization is in existence, can be described as a value chain in which the total rewards or revenue they are generating minus the total cost of activities that is incurred in generating those rewards is analyzed. And at the end of this comparison, we should be able to generate value for the company. So if we consider all the activities of a company that leads to the attainment of rewards, and we juxtapose that with the rewards we are getting and the company is making a lot of loss, then the suggestion of this value chain analysis will mean that there are so many things we may be doing wrong, and we have to consider them and change things around. So the main idea behind any value chain analysis is that the operations of a given business can be broken down to series of interconnected activities. And each of these interconnected activities add value to the product or services presented by the company. Now, generally speaking, these activities can be broken down to two main activities, including primary activities and secondary activities. So the primary activities are the ones that are directly involved in the production and distribution of the goods and services, whilst the secondary or the support activities are the ones that enable the primary activities to be performed. So if we were to be doing HR or management, the distinction between these primary and secondary activities can be likened to line and staff activities. So line activities are said to be those activities that border on the operations of an organization, resulting in their production and distribution of goods and services, whilst the staff activities are the ones that provide support services to ensure that the line activities succeeds. In another breath, you can also liken these primary and secondary activities to the military world. So in military, we have the front on the battlefield, we have the ones that fight on the field, and then we have the ones that stay behind and supply intelligence to those that are on the battlefield to succeed in their fighting. So the primary activities can be likened to all the activities on the military field, that is those that will be doing the shooting and protecting a given country, whilst the supporting activities are like the ones that will be staying behind and providing the intelligence. Now, when value chain analysis is successfully done, it can help to identify areas in an organization which the company can improve in order to enhance its level of competitive positioning. It will also help to identify opportunity costs that can be shared in order to realize and reduce the costs that are being incurred. It can even help the company to differentiate their products from that of the competitors. Another tool that can be utilized to conduct internal analysis is what we call benchmarking. And benchmarking is simply a tool that is utilized to compare the performance of a given organization with that of its rivals or competitors. Usually, it should be an industry peer. And the goal of any benchmarking exercise is to identify areas for improvements to be introduced, to also identify best practices that can be emulated by an organization, and to also help increase efficiency and effectiveness in the operation of an organization. So the thorough pursuit of benchmarking will entail an attempt to measure the cost of value chain across all industries to determine best practices. Typically speaking, there are several types of benchmarking. So we could have internal benchmarking, which is done within the confines of an organization. So when we say we are doing internal benchmarking, it means that we are comparing the performance and practices within different units or departments of the same organization. Maybe you are comparing HR department with marketing department, or you are comparing accounting and finance with procurement department. If this is done for a given organization, then we are doing internal benchmarking. We could also have another type of benchmarking known as competitive benchmarking, wherein an attempt is made to compare the performance of an organization with direct competitors in the same industry. The caveat here is that it should be of the same industry. And when this is thoroughly done, it will help the organization to know the practices it is having, which may not align with the best practices that have been rolled out by its competitors. It may also help the company to know how they can differentiate their products and services from what their competitors are doing, which is guaranteeing superior performance. We could also have functional benchmarking, which involves an attempt to compare performance of organizations that provide similar functions or services, irrespective of the industry they occupy. So, two or more organizations may be providing services or producing similar products, even though one may be in the service industry and the other may be in the industrial sector. But because their core mandates overlaps and the main function they are performing is also similar, despite their differing industrial occupation, they can still be compared. So whenever we compare performance of an organization with other organizations that provide similar functions, irrespective of their industry of occupation, then we are talking about functional benchmarking. Then we can also have another type of benchmarking, which we call generic benchmarking. Generic, which means it is general. So generic benchmarking is said to occur whenever we compare performance of an organization with other organizations that are known for their best practices, even if that organization is not in the same industry. So with generic benchmarking, the fixation of the tool is to identify best practices that have yielded favorable results in the same or similar competing industries. The next tool that can also be utilized to conduct internal assessment or internal auditing is what we call internal factor evaluation matrix, internal factor evaluation matrix or matrix. So internal factor evaluation matrix is also a tool that can be utilized in assessing the strengths and weaknesses of an organization's internal environment. And it usually involves an attempt made to summarize and evaluate the major strengths of an organization and the major weaknesses in the functional areas of the business. So by functional areas, I'm referring to the various departments or units that are found within the organization, ranging from management, marketing, finance, HR, through to operations. Now, the outcome of these functional areas and their and the nitty-gritty of their respective contribution to organizational success, as far as their strengths and weaknesses is concerned, are all important because it will help the firm to identify internal factors that is driving superior performance, and also identify areas of weaknesses in the organization that needs to be addressed. Now, the creation or the conduct of an internal factor evaluation matrix is usually 5-staged, as you are seeing on my screen. And the first stage involves the attempt which is made to list all the internal factors across the varied functional areas, and then identifying how they affect a company's performance. So if you pick a factor or a resource like organizational resources, how do these resources contribute to organizational success? If you pick another factor like organizational structure, organizational culture, production process, the competencies and capabilities of employees, how do they contribute to organizational success? So that is the first thing as far as the stages is concerned. And it is important for you to, as much as possible, list all these internal factors. After listing the internal factors, the next stage involves assigning weights or scores to the varied internal factors that will be enumerated. Now, the scores or weights that are apportioned to these internal factors will be determined on the relative importance of these factors to organizational success. Usually, the range of the weights is from 0 to 1. So you can apportion 1.5 or 2 as a weight to a particular factor score. Rather, you can apportion 0.1 to, let's say, 0.9 or exactly 1, depending on the priority that it's seen, that particular factor is seen in the attainment of organizational success. Then the third stage involves rating the strengths and weaknesses of all the internal factors. These ratings are also usually done with a Likert scale ranging from 1 to 4, wherein 1 signifies a major weakness that requires the rapt attention of the organization, and 4 also signals a major strength which may have to be sustained or incentivized, or if you like, replicated by the other functional areas in the organization. So having assigned the ways to the varied factor, the varied internal factors, the next stage in the process of conducting internal factor evaluation matrix will be to calculate the total weight score. The total weight score is computed by multiplying the weight of each factor by its rating to calculate the total weight score for each factor. So if, for instance, the weight for organizational culture is 1, and in terms of the strength or weakness of organizational structure is 3, then the total weight for organizational structure will be 3 times 1, which will be what? 3. In the same vein, assuming the assigned weight for the assigned weight for technology is 0.5. And the assigned rating for technology in the organization is also 3. Then the total weight for technology will be 3 times 0.5. So half of 3 is what? 1.5. Now, having done the computation of the weight scores, the next stage is to summarize the results, wherein the total weight scores that are calculated for each of the respective factors is summed to generate the overall score for the organization. Now, following the summation of the total weights, it is also important for interpretation to be made of these summaries. And it is that part that is of much relevance for us as far as strategic planning and strategic management is concerned. So if you are getting a total, if you are getting lower total weight score for specific indices, such as organizational culture, technology, what is the implication? And if you are getting higher scores for other internal factors, what is the implication? So the implication is that anytime you are getting lower scores after the summation, it will be important for you to know that a lot of attention must be paid to those specific internal factors in order to improve upon it, thereby guaranteeing the level of competitive advantage that the firm cannot obtain. In the same vein, when you are generating higher weight scores for a particular internal factor, then it does suggest that when you are interpreting it, we are supposed to throw in more incentives and interventions that can sustain the performance which is resulting in such higher weight scores. So these are the respective internal indicators, and these are their respective weights that have been assigned based on their contribution to organizational success. And these are the ratings from 1 to 4 that have been assigned to them as far as the a retail computer store is concerned. And their respective weight scores are also found here. So if we do a comparison of their respective weight scores, we realize the weight score in order of priority, the weight score of in-store technical support. No, it's not in-store, it's revenue from repairs and services. It's having a higher weight score, which means our internal operations in terms of generating revenue from the repairs and services we render to our customers is very much good. And so we have to pay keen attention to those that are working over there to incentivize them and to do whatever they are currently doing. The same can be said about employee morale. If the level of employee morale is generating a final risk of 0.30, it does suggest that it is something that is a strength of the organization, and they must continually do whatever they are doing now to sustain the morale of employees. But if you look at the bottom here, you realize some of them are having as low as 0.1. So that is, the store has no website. If the store has no website, it's considered as a weakness here, then it is something that management must bring their attention to and definitely try and get a website where the store can be updating their inventory inflows and outflows. Then another factor which also has a very low score is is that often customers have to wait to check out. They have to wait to check out, which is also having 0.05 weight score, which signals that it is something that is quite low and that has to be addressed. The same can be said about the 0.02 here, bordering on carpets and paint and bathroom in what? Bathroom in store needs refurbishment, which means that the current standard of the bathroom that is being used in the organization is nothing to write home about. And the attention of management needs to be done. So when we say we are using internal factor evaluating matrix to discern the strengths and weaknesses and know how to convert the strengths into capabilities of a firm, this is how the computation is done. And this is how you can also do the interpretations. This is your reading assignment. This one, you are not supposed to submit it to me, but